Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Weekly Dharma Gathering. My name is Shanté Paradigm Smalls. I'm one of the three co-founders of Weekly Dharma Gathering, and I'm really excited. Tonight, we are hosting Sensei Zenju Earthlyn Manuel. And tonight's format is going to be a dialogue, a conversation, an interview. First we'll have a guided meditation or a guided practice led by Zenju, then we'll have our conversation and then a Q&A, and then we'll end. And so again, tonight's session is being recorded. And so if you don't want your face on the video, please feel free to stop your camera. And you can ask questions either in the chat or by raising your hand through the participants feature or the reactions tab. If you have a question that comes up before the official Q&A period, just put it in the chat and I'll be sure to try and get to it. And then tonight's recording will be available in about 48 hours and it's accessible through your Vimeo account. And so if you aren't, I'll just do a little pitch now. Weekly Dharma Gathering is sustained by monthly and yearly subscribers, as well as people who join our talks either live or watch the recordings later. So we have a 7-day free trial. We have a rolling 25% discount, and we have a monthly and yearly subscription, $25 US a month or $250 a year. Or if those prices are out of reach, we also do we want people to be able to access these talks. So we're happy to work with you. Okay. So Zenju Earthlyn Manuel Osho is an ordained Zen priest and the Dharma heir of the Buddha and the late Zenkai Blanche Hartman. In the Shunryu Suzuki Roshi lineage through the San Francisco Zen Center. She was the Shuso or head student with Kiku Christina Lanhair Roshi, and her Dharma transmission was completed by Shosen Victoria Austin Osho. And she has suggested the title Osho for her work, meaning great Zen teacher in the Zen tradition. Zenju's practice is influenced by Native American and African indigenous traditions. She was raised in the Church of Christ, where she was an avid reader of the Bible and adored the true mystic teachings on Christ's path well into adulthood. She also participated in ceremony with Ifa diviners from Dahomey, Africa, and briefly studied Yoruba. She holds a PhD and formerly worked for decades as a social science researcher, a development director for nonprofit organizations and those serving women, girls, cultural arts, and mental health. And finally, she's a lover of art, music, indie film, literature, and dance. And I will put her link in the chat so you can go to our website. And now, Sensei, please teach us.
All right. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Glad you're here. Thank you for being here. And just so while we're starting and beginning, I'm going to change this view. Just take a time to be still. You know, take the opportunity to rest right now in this moment and settle your expectations and try to be here and not what's next, because we don't really know what's next. So I invite you to just breathe in the way that you breathe every day. If you notice anything about your breath, don't change it, just note it, that it's short or it's long. Don't try to make it the perfect breath. Don't try to make it the Buddha breath. And don't even try to meditate. Just take this time to be where you are. If stillness is not what your body wants in the moment, you know, you can move it about a little bit. And if it really is not wanting to be here, then maybe take a break and do something else. Don't force yourself into any space at all in any time, whatever honor, whatever comes up in your breath. So, as we begin this breath, I'm going to ring 3 bells, and then I want you to just listen to the bells. It's an opportunity to do nothing but listen to the bell. So, so you may close your eyes, have an inward gaze at this time. Or if you don't want to close your eyes, that's fine too. Just taking some inward time and looking into this moment, not tomorrow and not yesterday. And if there are any sounds being made, don't fight them, just take them in as part of your stillness time, part of your sitting, part of your world. Notice any judgments against yourself about how you're sitting, how you're not sitting, how you're meditating, how you're not meditating. Don't change it, just note it. Can you trust the transformation that is going on for you right now in this moment? Whether you can name it or not, or whether you even knew that it was happening. So we're staying with the breath, whatever breath that is. Short breath, no breath, anxiety breath, anger breath, rage breath, happy breath, whatever. Consider this moment your revolutionary moment today. Perhaps it's something you haven't done yet today, which is to sit still, to listen, or just to stop and pause. The fire of our existence is a perpetual fire. You're honing that now with your breath. The fire of our existence is a perpetual fire that was lit long before any of us came to earth. Feel the heat of your own breath, of that fire that was given to you upon birth. You came to the earth with it. And you have no knowledge of how that heat came into you. The heat you feel in the breath of your body, the fire of our existence. An ember of fire was placed inside each of us. And the constant burning and light of this first fire is life. It is a fire we are attending to as we sit right now. It's very important to take time to tend to your life, your fire of life, and to connect with it in the heat of your breath. Look up and look out now into your room that you're in, and look slowly around that room, very slowly. And you're just noticing where your eyes want to go. I'm going to do it with you. And you're just looking very slowly around. And notice how you're looking with that breath that you just honed, with that fire you just honed a few minutes ago. You know, you're looking with that fire. You're coming from within to without, to the external, to the world, to engage your world, and then even beyond. You might have looked out the window in this process. And so hopefully you're feeling a balance now, right now between the in and the out. And when we begin this session today in our discussion to have the in and the out, and as words come to you, go in, go out, go in, go out, this kind of wave inside of you. And just note it and notice it and see what arises in this time together. I'm going to see in my time here with you. Very excited. I'm going to ring the bell once more, just end this part. And you don't have to bow, I bow. So whatever you want to do. Whatever you do, I love that. Whatever you like to do.
Mm. Thank you so much, Sensei. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to Weekly Dharma Gathering. We're here every week, or most weeks. Sometimes we take breaks. My name is Shanté Paradigm Smalls. I'm one of the co-founders of Weekly Dharma Gathering. We're happy to have you. We are recording tonight, and we also have a live transcript happening, so auto transcript. So if you don't want to be on camera, just you are welcome to have your camera off, and we will have a official Q&A period after I ask my questions. But if you have questions that pop up before then, please feel free to put them in the chat. And when you have a question, please raise your virtual hand, either in the participants feature or the reactions tab, or if you're on a phone, *9. Okay. So I first just want to say thank you so much, Zenju, for agreeing to this. You know, I've been chasing you.
It's taken a while. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And no, I feel so grateful that you made time for our community. I first just want to say that you are, someone who has become very important to my own practice and teaching. And even though we've only met in person once, you've had a profound impact on me as a practitioner and as a Dharma teacher. And I know that you've had a profound impact on a lot of people. So I just want to say that first of all. So my first question is really in relation to the context of this past year of COVID-19 and the intensification of white supremacist violence and fascism around the world. And I'm wondering what kinds of things have been sustaining you, practices and connections and teachings, as we've been, many of us, all of us have been encountering more stillness, more solitude, more suffering, and the return of or the intensification of a global plague. So I'm just wondering what's been sustaining you.
I think it's a very good question. I have to say, on the one hand, I have a natural way of being, and that is solitude, is who I am and have been all my life, even when I was a kid. And I always tell people I was born a nun, but I didn't know what that was, a nun. Until I found, I said, oh, there actually is a thing. You could be this kind of thing. you know, good. I'll escape into that. But it has made me more intentional, I would say, around the silence and the solitude, and um, noticing the level of anger and rage, and my level of fear, and not um, feeling. I felt ready, but I didn't know if I were ready for sure. I felt kind of felt
Mm,
ready in my own mind, like, oh, I've practiced for so many years. I know how to do this. Go into the cave. And then it just wasn't about that. Uh,
right.
this whole pandemic, and then the craziness, the anti-Blackness, it's all of it just happening all at the same time. Was how am I to breathe through this and live through this? You
Mm,
know, which felt like that's been my entire life. But I
yeah.
feel like at this time last year was an intensification. And so we have what's called intensive sessions, right? Or you sit a month, or, you know, it was like that, you know, going into one of them, and without asking, you know, I wanting to go or asking to someone to allow me to come into this sitting, but being forced. And I was actually very excited that the country shut down. I was like,
Mm,
oh, I like this. You know,
mm,
I really did, because I felt suddenly joined in my solitude that I live anyway. And then I got a little bit nervous. I said, okay, but people aren't maybe ready for this either. And
right.
am I ready for it either? How far is it going to go? How deep is it going to go? I had no idea. In the beginning, I thought I had it. Oh, yes, first 2, 3 months, 4 months, five. I said, okay, wait a minute. Woo. This is even beyond me. Now, how, you know, and I would check in with my family to see how they were doing. And I understood that, and I was very happy that I had a practice already, and I had been walking the Dharma for so many years, and I had songs to sing from my
Mm,
Lakota community, Sundance community. I had my drumming. I had African drumming and Native drumming. I had my chants from Zen. I had a whole lot of things in which to release my fear and release my anger and release um, all of the emotions that were coming up. And I also was fortunate enough to have been asked by Parallax to write a book. And
mm,
I was like, whoa, you know, but that was like this book was like kind of like before, like I started writing this poetry, and I said, all I got is poetry right
mm,
now, because I felt like if I said the words that were in my head, it would really wreak havoc and cause suffering
yeah.
to me and others. So I didn't do it. And so I said, well, I have this book of poetry, and I was wondering how I was going to write this in poetry. So some of it was written, and then I had the pandemic hit, and it was time to kind of bring this book to completion. And it was very hard not to write about all that was going on,
Yeah.
but to write about what was right there in front of me, what
Mm,
was in the moment, what
mhm,
was to be seen, what was to be discovered, and to also look at everything else that way too. Every incident that occurred, you know, and last year was to, like, what is this? So then someone asked me to write another book. So there comes book 2, and that's going to come out soon. I said, wow, okay, either I'm about to die, or I better hurry up and get all these books out, you know. So
right.
I said, okay, I said yes to them to write this book. And I wrote about a little bit more about what we were in. And so I feel fortunate that I have that um, way of practice too, an inquiry about life. And so it's a book about darkness and opening
Mm,
to it. And that means opening to darkness and blackness. And
mm,
so that it became this whole thing. And oh my God. So I couldn't stop writing it. I just like kept writing it, writing it, writing. And I finished that book. And then I was asked to do another book with another publisher. And I said yes to them too. I said, I'm about to die.
oh my God. Oh
If they don't, if those books don't kill me, I'm going to die, because
my.
it's a lot of writing. So
Yeah.
I had all of this in me, so I wrote about the shamanic, and I'm just using that word loosely, shamanic um, background of Zen and Buddhism, period, and how that did not get transmitted to us. So we're kind of practicing this kind of,
Yes.
Something in this
Yeah.
culture. We're practicing something, and I think we kind of know it when those who practice like for years and decades. You're like, okay, yeah, and so the part that's missing is what I address in this book.
That's
So
beautiful.
that's how I handled it. I could say it handled me, and I
Right?
didn't know if I could meet all those deadlines. And I actually, I also was writing a novel. Yep.
Oh
Wrote,
my goodness.
yeah. But the novel had pretty much was in place. But it
Okay.
started to shift too with all the tides it just started shifting and shifting into this thing that was so deep and so of the other worlds, a lot of magic in it. It's very magic. It's not a novel about Buddha. So
Right. Yes.
so it's very magical and takes place in Haiti
Oh, okay.
during
Yes.
one of the first time the U.S. Invaded
Made
Haiti.
it. Okay.
And so, but it's all this magic that's going on with the people while this invasion is
Mm.
happening. So that's what the book's about. So you
Well,
see, I was pretty busy.
yes.
And but at the same time, those things were me looking at different pieces of my own life and
Yeah.
looking at humanity, because I knew something was happening with humanity, and I was happy that we all could maybe sit still enough to see what it was that was being asked of us,
Right.
because something, and still is, being asked of us. And we have a lot of ideas, and we're, like I talk sometimes and say, we're all very smart people. We got a brain that just goes 24/7. And we're really good at analyzing, critically analyzing. We're very good at Buddhism now. Everybody's very good at these things. And so
Hmm.
these things are not exactly what was meant for us to be good at. That's
Mm.
what I got out of it, that there was
Mm.
something else, and that we had to go further with our own practice, even myself too, further beyond books, even the books I write, further than that,
Yeah.
and I'm still in that process of where I don't know where I'm going to land. I just felt like I spiraled, and I don't know where I'm going to land. I did turn in all those books, and I don't know, if they're going to say, what the, what happened to her? But
You
so
did
far,
it.
they're kind of excited about the first couple of chapters. So that's good news. But you never know what's going to happen toward the end
Right.
of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So this is great. Yesterday I was on a panel for Pamela Io and Cheryl Giles and Lama Dawa Tarchin Phillips put together the Black and Buddhist um, 10. I think it's ending tomorrow or Friday. A 10-day, 7-day online summit with Black Buddhist teachers and scholars. And I was on the Black Buddhist writing panel, and it was really interesting to hear you talk about this writing, because Pamela asked me to read from my academic book that's coming out in the fall about queer aesthetics and hip hop, Black aesthetics. And then Angela Dews read from her novel about Harlem, and Valerie Brown read from her forthcoming book about heartbreak and Blackness and Buddhism. So it was really lovely to have these different and there were like 200 people, 250 people from around the world, and we were talking about writing, as part of our practice. So I am really interested in these and your process, and how you make time, and what writing does for you as a writer, and as a human being, as a practitioner.
Yeah. I began writing because I was pretty much a silent child, like I said, born a nun, and speechless about
Mm,
the world. I was like, this can't be, this life can't be. I'm
mm,
not willing to live this life. I don't know.
mm,
And so I'll be here in this world. And so writing became, I started writing at 8.
mm,
And then I think I got my first paycheck around something. I said, "Ooh, this makes money." You know, my first paycheck on an essay I wrote in college. Yeah, but I have been writing all along. I wrote in junior high and one honorable mention about America. And I
Mm,
wrote, in college. And, a lot of people said, well, when you're going to publish, and I would say, I don't want to. I don't want
mm,
to publish. I'm not interested. And they said, well, you should definitely get a degree in an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts, so that you can hone your skill. And I said, no, I don't want to, you know because if I do that, they're going to tell me how to write. And I
mm,
had already been an English major in high school, and definitely, I was in all their journals. I'm so sad I was clueless to not even save any of that work because
mm,
I didn't care about it, being published. And they said, "Did you know your work is in this?" And I go, "So what?" Because it really wasn't about publishing. It really wasn't about writing. It was about releasing again, that whole,
mm.
way of releasing, of breathing, of being and
Yes,
able to stay on in this life and in this planet with all that goes on all the time,
yes.
and with my own life, and so being Black and being queer and then walking around knowing there's, maybe half the world hates who I am. And then what am I going to do? Oh, okay. First of all, I decided to hate myself too. I joined them, and I called that internalized treason, where you leave
Mm,
yourself. You leave
yes.
yourself to be in the world. And I did. And then I came back, and then it didn't work, right? It doesn't work.
Right, right.
You're not who you are supposed to be, or who you are, who you want to
Yeah.
be, how you feel yourself to be. So I don't really have a process like a daily process about when I write and how I write. I think what happens is I'm just kind of going along, and something just, I always call it ancestors, grab me
Mm,
up and say,
mm,
I want you to say this.
mm-hmm.
And it takes me a long time before I say it. So the book, The Way of Tenderness, didn't come out until 17 years after I was in Zen, after I had entered that door. 17 years of then kind of grabbing, pawing ancestors, and it was just
Yeah.
going like this the whole time, this thing. And I'm going, wow, what is all this? I wouldn't be able to write all this down. I still feel that book is totally not done because it was too much.
Mm,
Um, I have a deck called the Black Angel cards, which is an oracle that came
yes.
through me in my sleep. And I think that
Mm,
that's exactly how it all comes to me. And that was overwhelming. That was totally overwhelming. I didn't even want to do it. I said, "Can I give this away?" I asked, and I tried to
yeah.
get people to put their name on the book because I didn't want my name on it. I said, "Oh no, this
Right.
ain't me. I'm not
Yeah.
doing this work." And then it just kept happening and kept happening. So when it grabs me up, I sit with it a while and see if it's a book or if it's an essay. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just an essay. Most of the times, if it doesn't have juice, if it's coming from my mind, for me,
Mm,
it just gets all convoluted, and it sounds like what everybody's saying. So why should I write about it? Who needs my book to say the same thing? So I don't bother with that. I just let those things come through.
mm,
And then something snap pops up and says, this is what we want you to say.
mm,
If you're brave enough to say it, you have the courage enough to say this. And most times I don't. I'm very frightened of my words.
mm,
I'm very frightened, but I just walk through that fear.
yeah.
I thought when I wrote the Way of Tenderness, I was going to get a lot of phone calls and letters talking about what do you think you're talking about? Because I was saying identity is okay. And that's the first thing they tell you to let go of.
That's right.
So, so I was pretty surprised it was accepted. And everything, like when I talk about, oh, what about the shamanism and the Buddhism, and everybody's accepting that. So I think that I'm kind of like this person, I feel, that's kind of in the underbelly, in the underground, that's bringing forth some things. I think a lot of us are, that are bringing forth things that need to be said. Whether how we say it, it doesn't matter. Whether it's
Yeah.
academic, oh my God, there's so much great work coming out in
Yeah.
academia or Black scholars so much poetry, so many movies that are just, I'm just so excited,
Yeah.
you know, to
Yes.
this time. I'm so glad to be alive. And it's all profound. Even when it doesn't feel good, it's profound. Even what happens, it's profound to see people climbing the Capitol wall. That is like, wow. What
Mm,
what is
yeah.
it? Where do we live?
Right. Right.
What was that really? Other than the
Yeah.
people climbing the wall, they were white. If they were black, they would have been killed. Those are the stories. But what really was that? And
Right.
is that really what is it? And did I feel intimidated by it for myself? No,
Mm,
at all, not at all. Um, I was, I think I got in a couple of debates, maybe with some folks about whether it was a coup or not, and I didn't want to give him that.
mm,
He's just to me not that intelligent because, and I said the coup would have been to wait till Biden got in and then storm the Capitol
mm,
and get Biden and Kamala Harris.
mm-hmm.
Go get them. That would have been like now would be time for the coup
Yeah. Right.
if you're going to do one. I mean, the coups I've seen. I think they just had one in what country was that?
Myanmar.
Yes. Yeah, just that there it is. I said, now that's a coup. Okay. And so not to coups are really important, not to minimize it and throw it upon. Um, and this is just me sitting and discovering and looking and seeing what is really happening other than what I'm hearing, even what I think I'm seeing,
Mm, mm-hmm. Right.
because it might not be what it is. And that always opens the door for me. Just so writing opens the door,
Mm,
writing, sharing the writing and publishing is something else.
right.
I
Right.
don't know that part with that. I do get some checks in the mail. And but it's not a lucrative business, especially writing Buddhist books. And first of all, I never wanted to write any of those. I was just trying to get my novel out. In the meantime, I wrote all these books.
Right.
So
Ah,
basically, I was trying to write my novel. Like I'm a novel writer. I'm Toni Morrison. I'm not into this Buddhist book, Dharma books. They don't need any more Dharma books. Do they need another Dharma book? And
mm,
that's how I was feeling. And I said, if I write it, it has to say something different. And
yeah.
if it says the same thing, then what everybody else, I have wasted my time, my life. My life is just wasted. I have to say, and something. And I asked people, when you read it, I said, did you learn anything different or new? And some people will reverberate back to me something they read in another book. And I
Mm.
said, I don't know I did not write that. And, all writers are saying something different.
Yeah.
you know, Black Buddhist writers are saying something different. Each one is saying something different. And I think it needs to be acknowledged. There's a diversity in the voices
Yes.
and
Yes.
in the method, in the approach. And I can't help myself from writing. Like I said, I've been writing since I was 8. They just, we're going to have you do this.
Mm,
We want you to write and to teach. I thought I would be teaching in the Ifa tradition or something.
mm,
I never thought, I would have been a Christian minister if my church would have allowed women ministers. But I knew when I was little, I was like, oh no, I need to be in that pulpit. What he is saying is wrong, and I would argue. And I started arguing at 10 with
yeah.
the Sunday school teacher and the ministers.
Yes.
And I knew, I said, okay, and I'm not going to get up there to get a chance to preach. At that time, I didn't know there were Christian churches that had women ministers.
Yeah.
But had I known that, I probably would be a Christian minister because that's what I was raised in. And I found Christianity just as powerful and profound as Buddhism. I also think I would write another book called The Way of Tenderness that would be steeped in Christianity that there's still
Mm,
there still would be that same thread that's, the healing that needs to be done, and what is being said is not what the Jesus the mystic taught. All these kinds of things would still come out. What we're talking about around Buddhism, what we're trying to be as Buddhists, you can't be.
yeah.
You can't accomplish any of it. And that's the hard part. And then people are like, well, why am I here? And that's the part, the shamanistic part that's missing, because you're just to be in the ceremony. And while you're in the ceremony, then what you need to know will come through
Mm-hmm.
for you, what your medicine is, what your what wisdom is needed for you. Long as you, like we're doing now, we're in ceremony now, really, because we're talking about things as of our lives, and we're honing and digging wisdom around our life experience. Even though I'm talking about my life, I think and I hope things of your own lives are coming through as well.
Yes.
I'm sure they are. They'll come up in the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is so rich. And I think what I'm gonna do is maybe just ask one more question and then open it up. I have like so many more questions, but I
I
think I
know. I'm
wanna
going to try to get to them because I like the
no,
questions.
no, I think I'm gonna maybe we can continue it in another
Hmm.
format. But I think I'm interested in hearing more about well, there are these two essays you wrote. One that came out in June, and then one that came out, I think, around this in January. So if y'all haven't read "The Darkness is Asking to Be Loved," that came out in June, and then "Awakening Fueled by Rage," which I think came out in January, right? Am I making okay? But I was really struck when you talked about awakening fueled by rage. You were talking about blackness and dharma and rage, but also for me, one of the protectors that I have a relationship with, Forum Mahakala, or the Great Black One.
Hmm.
um and this thing you were going back to, this thing you were saying about not just darkness as in the way that in the West, there's the kind of light is good and dark is bad, and we have to actually explore darkness, and darkness is rich in space and the sea and the ocean, but also darkness as it is mapped onto bodies. And so I'm interested in hearing just a little bit more about you know nav how like anti-blackness arises in and through dharma spaces, in your experience, and also in dharma, where for instance, it's not as much now, but every time there's like something that emphasizes Black Buddhists or Asian American Buddhists or Latinx Buddhists, it's like the dharma has no color, yet the most dharma communities in the West are white dominant, except for SGI, really, and a few others, East Bay Meditation Center, and some other ones that have Bhumi Sparsha that have popped up. But the way that whiteness hides itself, and I'm just wondering if you could say more about anti-blackness, and this moment of rage, as it intersects with dharma.
Okay. And this is why I write.
You know,
Read
you
the
can, you can,
article. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, yeah, you can,
I'm kidding.
you can pass, you can
I'm
pass.
kidding. No, but I'm going to say something to it because it's very deep. What you're asking it's a very complex and multidimensional question. And when there are very few books out about, being of color or being Black or being indigenous in Buddhist places and centers. There were very few. There were essays and some books. Angel Coda Williams, and then I think Larry Yang and Musham Kid at Nash had written some things. When I began to write about it, like I said, it took me 17 years.
Mhm.
I wanted to not only look at the oppression and white supremacy that was there, I wanted to look at the white supremacy that was everywhere, that permeated the walls there. So in and out, in and out. It was everywhere because I felt it everywhere. So when I got to Zen Center, in the beginning it was a lot of struggle, and I was saying, okay, are you going to go? Or are you going to stay?
Mm.
With so many white people and unconsciousness and this and that. And I think I went through a sashimi, and I realized, oh, this is going to be rich if I can stand it. Now, I came into Zen from Nichiren Buddhism, from Soka Gakkai. So
Yeah.
I already had 15 years there, and I was a teacher there. So I'm just telling people that I was prepared
Yeah.
with my shamatha when I came in. I was there, baby, with it.
Yes. Yum,
So
yum, yum, ring it,
yeah, I was there. And then, I entered. I didn't go out and choose Zen. I didn't choose Buddhism either. I was never interested in Buddhism or Buddha. I was interested in transformation and healing. And I did meet some Zen priests who, in their bodies, something came through to me from their bodies. And I said, woo, what are they doing? I said, oh, they're doing something. It's a practice. That's Zen. Now I don't remember anything they said, and I think what they said wasn't at all profound, and not to put them down or anything. It just didn't touch me. It was how
Yeah.
they were. It was the beingness, and I said, I want to be so in myself, in my body, and in my life that way. So I'm gonna go sit over there, I think, and try that out. And I did, and I ended up in a people of color group at San Francisco Zen Center. And there was 40 of us that met every week. It was a large group, and that was my entrance into Zen. And then it was a protection, right? So that wasn't in mainstream. And then I decided, I said, wait a minute, we're not learning some of the forms. And I wanted to learn the forms and the chanting. And so I started to come, more and to do something different. And I ended up having to leave I talk about this in the Way of Tenderness, leave the people of color group and then go into the white mainstream group. And both were suspect of me, right? So I ran treason for the people of color group. And then the white group were like, oh no, what are you doing over here? You didn't like us, and you were over there. And,
Yeah.
people stopped talking to me, for being over there. And that, those things were important places for me to learn about people, the human nature of people. White supremacy has a human nature. What is it?
Yeah.
What is the human nature of white supremacy?
Mm.
So if we're still just talking about what everybody else is talking about in white supremacy, that's good. But we're in this practice that's asking us to look deeper. So when I looked into darkness, I said, oh, right now, all the stuff that's happening with Black people being killed is darkness itself is asking to be loved. I didn't say Black people were asking to be loved. Darkness is asking to be loved. Therefore, Blackness is too. And then what that is, because we don't love it, not just because those who are white, but just period. The nature of darkness, we want to get out of it. We want to go to the light.
Yeah, right.
Where's the light? Every time I told people I was writing about darkness, they were like, oh, shoot. They're not happy, because this is not about light. Not light, not white, and I wanted to focus my work on Blackness and darkness. And if I was going to transfer that to people, I wanted to focus my work on Black people, because that's my experience, what I knew, and what my quest was. And so I rarely talk about the white people in the white centers, because that's too much energy and it's exhausting for me. And it always leaves out us, Black people. So when I would read things, it would be like, okay, if we're going to talk about being in white centers and there's white supremacy there, why are we there? And even if we have our own groups that are people of color, are we reifying our woundedness, our oppression, or any of these things? There's so many questions to be asked, no matter what cultural sanctuary you're within. If it's a queer group, it doesn't matter. Transgender movements, doing the retreats, I love it. What is happening there, though? And so even in my own Sangha, which is all Black, to spin our wheels talking about white people, I stopped that dialogue. Boom, boom, boom. Because again, whiteness is being invoked. Unlearning racism is whiteness being invoked. Unlearning whiteness is whiteness being invoked. Wide awake is whiteness being invoked. There's no attention to the healing of those who are suffering
Mm.
from the oppression. No one's talking about internalized oppression. Or if they are, it's very little, because some of us feel, and I have felt that myself, I felt it as a kid. If we could get this country to understand
Right.
who we are, and
Right.
we're human, and
Right.
then, so let me help them understand. That's kind of like having a lover and saying, let me get that lover to get it so they'll love me.
That's right.
And we know where that goes. Hopefully everyone here kind of understands that kind of thinking. And so I thought it was important.
Mm.
I love Mahakali, and Zen, she's Daikotinyo. And so in Zen, they do talk about Daikoku, and Daikoku is, they have statues right in front of the temples, big black statues in front of the temples in Japan, of this deity. And I saw that deity, it latched on to me in naming one of my students. And so it latched on to me.
Mm.
And I began to really, that's where the darkness book is a lot more in that book that's coming out on
Oh,
darkness
good.
around
Oh,
that. And
good.
I truly didn't, I was going to use all of these kind of Buddhist wrathful gods and goddesses to talk about it, but I ended up using the Buddhan spirit
Mm.
pantheon, and to
Mm.
use those mothers as dark African mothers to guide the darkness and protection. So Mahakali is a protector, right? So
Yes.
what is she protecting? What is she protecting?
Yeah.
And that's what was happening in 2020. All the things that were troubling and disruption was to protect the sacredness and our sanity in humanity. So things will rise to shift and disrupt everything, kali, kali,
Right.
kali, until it settles like, whew, they got it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get more and more of that, more and
That's right.
more of this kind of rageful, wrathfulness, um, feeling uncomfortable, hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And and there's sweetness in it too, because I always feel like I'm a protector of blackness and of darkness. I feel as a
Mm-hmm.
one of those deities that I always say I I'm very I can come off very intense and hard, but at the same time I have flowers,
Yep.
because I'm serious about protecting the sanctity of humanity, and be it that through blackness, then that's where it's going to be from. And to look at blackness as evolutionary. So it's not the black you think, not the black I think,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't know either what's darkness, what's blackness.
Mm.
And to hold that gate open, because that has given me so much liberation,
Oh.
while at the same time I have suffered so much. But I
Mm-hmm.
have had, I mean, physically been beat, okay?
Yeah.
Suffered for every part of myself, you know, not just the blackness. That's why I just don't talk about whiteness,
Yeah.
because it's more for me than just that. But that is
Mm-hmm.
number one, because that's what people see first, right?
That's right.
And so I think it's important in these times to take a look at uh, the wrathfulness of the deity of Mahakali, of Daikoku, and to as we're in this darkness, helping each other to be in it in a way that's well and long enough, not reaching for the light, as people say, oh no, I just want to talk light, light, light,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and be light. And if
Right.
we do that, then we when things like pandemic come and all kinds of stuff come, we want to get out of it.
Yeah.
Teenagers are in the most deepest transformation of darkness, right? Remember being a teenager, how dark
Mm.
it was.
Terrible.
Yeah. So if we're not teaching children how to be in that darkness and they want to get out, of course we have suicide.
Yeah.
I get out
Yep.
because no one's teaching me how to be in it. So I think we don't know yet how to do it. We're practicing that now. We're learning about it because it's always here. I say life is dark. It really isn't all that light. It's dark. It's
Mm-hmm.
unknown. It's to be
Yeah.
discovered. But we're afraid of that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
White supremacy is to be discovered too.
Mm,
Blackness is to be discovered. Racism is to be discovered. All of it's to be discovered. And when it's discovered and used as a way, as gateways to liberation, then I think we have we're moving past as a humanity, past just the critical analysis,
yeah.
and past trying to get people to understand it. I need you to understand this about me so I can have a happy life. I don't need that anymore. I don't need the centers to be multicultural or diverse. I have no need of
Right.
that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't. I
I'm with
think
you.
they can be it if they want it, and if whatever, and it'll happen. And but it's not my work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm clear.
Mm-hmm.
My work is here as a healer.
Mm.
I am very clear. So
Wow. So let's open it up for some questions. So again, if you have a question, please either press the reactions tab or the raise hand feature in participants tab. And if you're on a phone, I think you can do, I think it's *9 to raise your hand. It may be *6, I can't remember, but yeah, or you can write your question in the chat. So, and I'll read it out. So, any questions for Zenju?
I'll
I
try to
see a,
be brief.
I see a heart. I see some hearts.
Yeah, I see some hearts. Yeah, I think people are kind of like, woo.
You trying to take
They're
it
trying to
in?
take it in. Yeah.
Maybe you need to
This,
stretch or something like you.
this is how my writing is. So I'm sorry if I overloaded you, but my
No,
writing
no. I'm
like
gonna
that
go to my
too.
friend
I just kind of
here.
go, and then I have to bring it back. I just kind of.
Go ahead. Is it Remiku?
Yes,
Okay.
Reimoku.
Romuko.
You
Okay,
said
go ahead. Remoku. Thank you.
greetings, greetings, greetings. Thank you. Firstly, I am so honored to be present at this gathering. Zenju Sensei, I have read your works and it is so difficult to communicate the activation that I feel in my spirit, having listened to your talk and also being in the presence of a Black Zen teacher and healer. So just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been practicing Zen in the tradition of Taisen Deshimaru for the last 11 years.
Mhm.
And I was ordained a priest in 2017, in January. I, along with two other Black members of our Sangha, were the first African-American members of this particular lineage to be ordained. And very recently, I had a split with my lineage due to a disagreement that I had with my teacher.
Mm.
And so it is um, deeply moving to hear about all of the experiences that I believe you and I have in common, from being called to the priesthood at an early age. I too believe that I was going to be a Christian minister as a kid. Um, I found Zen when I was in high school and started practicing my first year of college. And my question for you is, I think, a very simple one. Are you accepting new students?
Uh, um, good question. Not right now, and that's we do have where you can come and sit as a guest, and for a month or two, we've had guests come through. But Zen, the way Zen is structured, I have like a handful of students that I work very closely with, and we are work. We're all Black. That just happened. I didn't create an all Black sangha. I didn't say I want an all Black sangha. It happened on its own. It evolved on its own. My sangha was open to everybody, and everybody was there. And then it just evolved, especially after Trump was elected. it shifted. And so, and then I only find that certain people come to me anyway or want to stay, you know, and that's okay. I think people, you go to who reflects you. It doesn't have to even be reflective in terms of colors, just resonance. And so working in the Zen world, there's a lot of practice discussions. There's, as you know, different levels of ordination, lay ordination, priest ordination. It took, that's what I tell people, I could not do a Dharma talk or hang a shingle until 20 years later, 20 years. So it wasn't three years and then I could start teaching. It was 20 years to get to be a Dharma transmitted teacher. And so you have to be very careful you're bringing in your training. Can you take them that far? Can you take people that far and what it takes? And so, and holding each one's life, I take very seriously. And I worked in depth, you know, with people. So I do offer guest season time if you want to come and sit guests, but and just see, you know, what are you asking when you ask for someone to be your teacher? And how have you prepared yourself for a teacher? You know, yourself, your life, because I say that to everyone. You know, have you done your therapy? Have you taken care of your body? Have you gone to the doctors? Do you, what other modalities have you been in? You know, so you preparing yourself to be led in ceremony and ritual by a teacher, a Zen teacher, so that those things help you move through this. It's very different than some of the other kind of Buddhist centers where you can just come and sit. But Zen is so different than other traditions. And it's hard, you know, and it's hard to, I think you have to be prepared. And so sometimes people come in and they go out, people come in and they go out. And like I have a lot of people that call me their teacher, and that's okay for me. You don't have to come and sit with me, you know, for me to be that. And I feel like I'm very careful with the teacher-student relationship because it can reinforce an oppressive state, you know, where I noticed right away is what I didn't like about being a Zen teacher was the teacher relationship, especially for people of color, mimic the oppression. And so I had to learn how to not mimic it and to take it into another realm, and also, but to maintain the sacred space and respect at the same time. It's really a balance. So I can welcome you as a guest. You know, contact it's info@zenju.org. You know, send the email there, and we can see, you know, how to, you know, set you up to come visit with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Because I have a lot more. I have more questions.
She does have more. They have more.
I wanted to give you. I want to give you all time, and we only have about 10 more minutes with Sensei, so to be respectful of her time.
Let's see your question, Shanté.
Okay. I think you answered that one. Okay, so you already talked about that. I'm just going to ask you a simple question about your latest book that I haven't had it. Well, so first, let me back up and say, The Way of Tenderness was how I was introduced to you, and that book opened up a lot for me. Being a Vajrayana practitioner, and similar, Zen and Vajrayana are different, but
they're similar.
The hierarchies are very, very similar.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, the relationship between the tantric, the Tukul system and the tantric traditional tantric system is a beautiful marriage with white supremacy, right? And so when I read that book, it really opened up a lot for me, and it's something that when we did teacher trainings, we ended up putting that in the curriculum, and it opened up a lot for the students we were training to be to train them to give meditation instruction.
Right.
So I know you talked about in the beginning all your books, but so your book that came out in December is called
The Deepest Peace.
The Deepest Peace. Okay, so can you talk to us about this book?
This is one of those books I think that I was grabbed up to do, and I said, oh, well, everybody's writing about, being a color in the Dharma Center, and I already wrote mine a long time ago, so I'm kind of done with that one. so anyway, I wanted to, and it's interesting, it came out, it was coming out at the time of so much anti-Blackness and killing and all kind of the pandemic and everything was happening. And here I am saying, oh, the deepest peace. And I was wondering, would anybody see this book at all, in the midst of everything? And at first I was afraid of that because people won't understand what I was writing about. Every time I write about something, it's not what other people are writing about. So I'm not writing about peace in the way it's been written about. I wasn't writing about race in the way it's been written about. I wrote a book telling me something about Buddhism. They said, I already know about Buddhism. I said, I didn't write about it in the way that you know about it. And so because otherwise I wouldn't write it. Why do this when Thich Nhat Hanh has, how many books does he have on peace? I don't know, but why? So it came through me that I wanted to try and write in a way, not to say this is peace or we should have peace or make peacemaking, not that either. That's another movement. Peacemaking is a movement. And so I'm not calling in that movement. I wanted to see in the midst of all that's violent and hard, what is peace and where is it, exploring it. And I explored it through poetry and prose. And I read some of it to you. I read in the guided meditation, I was talking about life and the fire and the ember inside of us.
Yes.
And I think that I wanted it to be more of a tool, actually, so that you would read it. I always tell people, don't worry about the content. I'm not trying to tell you something about myself. I'm not trying to influence you with my ideas. I'm not telling you about anything, but a lot of things show up in it anyway. So I wanted to see, what can I say, what that would be when you read it, you would feel a sense of peace. And that it would be that kind of tool. You might not even have known what you read. You probably can't even talk about what you just read, but you would read it. So it's kind of strange in that way. And so I remember when I was reading the last kind of PDF, when it's getting ready to go to print, I was reading it and I got real dizzy reading it. And I called my friend and I said, oh no, this book can't go out. I said, people are going to be all Louie, and they're not going to be grounded. And so, but it went. And then when I feel that I'm in that place where I am consumed or about to be consumed, allow myself to be consumed by the suffering, I read this book myself. It stays by my bed. And this is the first book I read that's by my bed. That's my book. This is the first one.
Wow.
Other than the angel cards, I would keep those sometimes by my bed to read that. But this is the first book that I keep, and I open it anywhere and I read it. And there's just this sense of peace, of seeing the world in its complexity. So a lot of times we're just looking at the world in the way it's presented to us, right? In the media or from friends or whatever, but rarely, what is this sense and experience? So I'm kind of drawing people into an experience using a lot, I love poetry, which got me into, I was writing poetry at 8, and I got into Zen because of the poetry. Basho and these different poets, Segyo and Hashan and all these different poets, where I said, wow, it's so easy to say so much in just a few words. And like one of my favorite thing is, grass more than a blade.
Mm,
And in that, that just opens up just our lives, period. It's more than what we think it is and what we feel it to be,
mhm.
or all I hear are mountains.
Mm,
So this, that sense of the earth and connecting, because this is an earth practice. Buddhism is an earth practice. It was done on the dirt, on the ground in India. It is not, it's an earth practice.
yes.
And so I was bringing it really back to the earth for myself, and hopefully,
Mm,
and in that connection to the earth, when you're riled up and you can make a connection to the earth, then, you're, it's a way of staying open to life and discovering it too.
mm,
And so I think we think these are temple practices, and
right, right.
we think there's some scholarly philosophy, whatever, and we can do all of that. I think it's great. I'm a scholar, I'm a philosopher too, but ultimately it's in all of the things that have happened to me have brought me to understand it more and more and more, how much it is an earth practice. So when I wrote Darkness is Asking to Be Loved, they called me to ask that. Most times all the art, everything I write, people call me to write. I don't just go, you want this article? I don't, I don't send anything out. I don't send for book
Right.
proposals or nothing. They call me. So they had called me, George Floyd had gotten killed, and they called me, you want to write about it? And that was what came out,
Hmm.
because I think people just kind of like, we're going to meditate this away.
Right.
And I said, you better get off that cushion and fall down where I'm here. I'm down on the ground.
Hmm.
So, and we need to get down on the ground and grieve and cry and mourn and be real about it, and get what the earth is trying to show us. And I used my image was a Black Panther. They used some
Mm,
other thing, but I used the Black Panther as the image, which is we would be, if one showed up, we'd be a little bit nervous about it. And so that kind of nervousness that's the same thing how people feel when I can see when they see me, they feel like a Black Panther just walked right in front of them or something. Just like, wow,
yeah.
so I think that when we get to, if one walked in front of me, I'd be a little bit scary too, but I'm talking about people, but I'm saying that I couldn't write about white supremacy and anti-blackness at the time when they asked me to write. So I just wrote from this deep grief and pain.
Mm,
When are we going to love darkness as much as we love the wisdom of lightness? When we're going to
yes.
love it all
Right.
and not just one side of it. That's what it's about. That, and saying with the one about rage, awakening through rage, fueled through rage, the fuel of rage opened and landed and grounded my blackness. I'm not talking about I pinned it and stuck it and claimed it, but it grounded it in the earth and its evolution of it, and
Mm,
how multidimensional it is, and porous that it
mm,
is, how porous
mm,
blackness is. And to really all of us to talk about it more, what, the evolution of what blackness is and darkness is, to talk more about it. Thus I went on and wrote that book. I don't know if it's going to help people talk more about it. I don't know what anything I do is going to do, even though I might have an intention. But this book, The Deepest Peace, I think did come out the right time. I think it did come out when people were just angst because, well, I feel helpless
yeah.
and hopeless. And I never felt that.
Right.
I don't ever feel that anymore as a
Right.
practitioner, because not that, oh, I got my Buddhism on, I'm so strong, but because I know that something is being asked of me and asked of us in the darkness and in the suffering. So I am not, you know, I will move forward, with what needs to. Contemplation and stillness, that could mean a lot of things too. People get a little nervous. Oh no, she's gone She's become an absolutist. She has, and I'm far from that. Most people know I'm not that. I'm not that.
Right.
I'm not a relativist either.
Mm,
I am an integration of it all,
yeah.
because I always tell people, we really can't really love, and we don't know what oneness is, or harmony, or any of these things. These are things to be experienced. We can experience them, and in the moment have some kind of experience that we think we're having. I said, but they're to come to you in the ceremony of sitting meditation, or walking meditation, or the practice from the earth. They're to come to you, not for us to
Mm,
decide what it is. That's everything, not
yes.
just, so the absolute parts that we just love about Buddhism, loving kindness, person who told me, "You're not very loving and kind," said that to me. And I was like, this was a long time ago. I was like, I mean, they came to my house to tell me that. So,
Okay.
so I was like, woo, I didn't even know what had happened. And I wasn't
Oh.
given any heads up. But when I was sitting there, I was like, of course, I attended to the way the person felt, in the moment. That's what you do. You attend to the person's suffering. And I did. But to think that we could decide who is and who isn't is a
Yeah.
bold move.
Right.
And then what is it? What is loving kindness? So if I say, "Oh, I'm going to be loving and kind to you," and then you go, "Well, it didn't feel loving and kind to me. What?"
Mm,
So you have an idea, everybody has an idea of what that looks like. And most times it's so not based in the earth, not
yeah.
based in anything. It's just something out of our heads. Today, I'm just going to be this loving person because I'm going to be smiling all the time. And they're just going to receive my light. And I'm going to be a person of no self, which they
Yeah.
think means nobody, but that's not what it means.
Right.
No self exactly means what I'm talking about, the integration of the relative and the absolute, because they're integrated. Everything is integrated. And the duality and the polarization comes from some of our ideas, right? And our perceptions and our conceptions. And we learned that. But now we got to experience it. We know
Mm.
it in our mind. We're so brilliant. We are brilliant. I have a PhD too, but oh well. So what? So what? People are like, should we call you Dr. Manuel? And then people say Dr. Manuel, I go, who the hell is that?
Who's that?
Like, okay, yeah, I remember that. You know, so long ago, going to school, that school, void of the wisdom I've learned all my life.
Mm,
Even becoming a priest to me was acknowledging my 35 years of walking the path. It wasn't to become anything. I was acknowledging, marking for myself that this had become my life. And then other people would know that, that's Zenju is really going deep into this as her life. This is how she lives.
mm,
Not who she is how she lives.
mm.
Not who she is. We don't know who she is. I don't know. If you know who I am, call me up. info@zenju.org. Tell me, who am I? Maybe you can find out if I'm loving and kind. But,
Right.
you know, it's a really beautiful practice, Buddhism, if you can allow it not to be an ism, and if you could allow it not to make yourself into anything, but to be in the openness of what Buddha was trying to bring, and the liberation that he was bringing to people who never thought they could be free, ever, 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 ever. So I think that is the core of it, of those teachings. And I'm glad to have walked Zen despite all the racism, sexism, homophobia I had to deal with, which, I grew up. I did mature around it, because I used to get very paralyzed and cry a lot, but I still cry, but it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
tears are different. Yeah, so they're liberating tears.
Mm,
Yeah, even when I'm hurt. even when it's hard. Those are liberating. It's liberating to cry. So
Um,
again,
yeah,
a lot.
you've given us so much. So the great thing about these talks is that they're recorded. And so, um, we can return to them over and over again. I know I will be. And so I just wanted to take the time to thank you again for taking the time to be with us. Um, and just hearing the little bit you shared about, what you're generating. I'm very grateful for the time you've made for me and for this community. And thank you all for coming tonight. Just little sales pitch. So weekly Dharma gathering, we're here most every week. Next week, the link is not live yet, but Arti Tejuja, who's one of our main teachers, will be teaching. She's an amazing practitioner. She does a lot of work on transformative justice. So I'll just put, you can go to our website. We have a 7-day free trial. We have a great lineup next month for International Women's History Month. And you can always, we have a 2-year library. So we have a lot of really great talks by a lot of great Dharma teachers, somatic teachers, body workers. So I hope you'll join us again. Thank you so much, Zenju. And
Thank you. And for those who posted about the books, thank you too, letting me know. It's encouraging that I haven't lost my mind and put it all in a book and sent it out to the world.
and please go follow. I'm gonna put Zenju's website in here again. So you can, I can't find it. Anyway, oh, here it is. So all of her books and essays are listed on the website. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon.
All right, bye. Take care
Bye.
of yourself.
Take care.